My closet. There's a big round tree in my closet.
It's terrible. I've never seen anything like it.
This is truly a state of emergency.
On July 22nd, 2003, a storm rolled through the Mid-South. It happens all the time. But this storm would change the landscape and touch everyone in its path. Good evening, I'm Joe Birch.
And I'm Donna Davis. And tonight, Action News 5 will take a look back at the destruction at dawn, the storm, the struggle, and the strength left in the wake of it all.
A lot of lightning associated with this.
Tuesday morning, powerful straight-line winds hit the Mid-South, with speeds reaching around 100 miles an hour.
There's a shot from our High 5 camera in Midtown. You can see the very heavy, and that looked like a transformer exploding just a moment ago.
The storm hit Midtown with a fury as wind and rain blasted homes in the Cooper Young neighborhood. A viewer shot this video of the storm in Lakeland. Look at the wind, the massive lightning, and watch the rain hit the house across the street, shooting into the air after slamming onto the roof. And more fierce wind, unstoppable wind. When it was over, no one could imagine the impact. Brick buildings torn apart.
Well, I mean, the whole top floor is just gone.
Yeah, it's laying in the street over there.
Trees and houses.
It's in my closet. There's a big round tree in my closet.
Cars smashed like toys.
We were just sitting at the light and the whole tree just fell on the car while we were sitting there at the light.
And power poles down for miles like dominoes, crippling the Mid-South, leaving more than 300,000 customers without power.
By Tuesday afternoon, people here realized this was no ordinary storm.
And I couldn't believe what was happening. It was just cracking and popping from everywhere, you know.
We heard loud noises. We looked outside, of course, saw trees being blown to one side or the other, and it happened probably in about 5 minutes. And we came out to assess, and we came out here, and of course, there's a big hole inside of our house.
Not in Memphis. Not in Memphis. It's like a hurricane.
The widespread damage forced city and county leaders across the Mid-South to declare a state of emergency in Tunica County, DeSoto County, Fayette County, Shelby County, and Memphis.
This is one of the worst storms that I've seen since I've been in Memphis.
And evacuate parts of historic Beale Street.
Our show has been canceled tonight due to the weather.
As a crane at the FedEx Forum construction site, bent by the storm's fury, threatened to collapse. It was a day marked, too, by tragedy. In the storm's path, two people, unsuspecting and unprepared. The massive winds knocked a tree onto a home, killing an elderly man. And a 2-month-old baby died in an apartment fire, a fire investigators blamed on an unattended candle. The sense of loss could be felt everywhere Tuesday, and as an eerie darkness fell across the Mid-South, it became clear the summer storm touched us all.
At dawn Wednesday, more than 265,000 homes were still without power, and the community felt as tattered as the flag atop the Clark Tower. Down, but not out.
We don't want to set any false expectations that we're going to get the power turned on in the next 2 or 3 days.
These are all the trees down and the damage in the block roads in unincorporated Shelby County.
Tree-blocked roads made it tough going for city and county fire departments, responding to hundreds of calls, many fires caused by candles.
I seen a blaze of fire when I woke up.
A brother and sister on Netherwood became the 3rd and 4th victims of the storm. Candles weren't the only danger. Gas-powered generators were in short supply, and those who had them used them, sometimes with deadly consequences.
Just laying there, you could tell they were barely breathing.
10 people were found unconscious inside this home on McElroy, and one, a toddler, didn't survive. Power crews also took to the streets Wednesday as leaders urged calm.
In fact, it's larger than the one we had in '94. It took us a while, but we eventually got everything back in order. Then we'll do that again.
The conditions are tough. The conditions over in Iraq are tough for the soldiers. They're bearing it. I think we can bear 4 or 5 days of misery.
Some of the misery centered on the search for open gas stations and ice. And as the day drew to a close, one Memphis celebrity who stood in line summed it up nicely.
Blessings come in many disguises, don't they?
By Thursday, chainsaws and cranes became welcome noises in nearly every Mid-South neighborhood.
When it hit, it sounded like a bomb went off, and this thing came through here, and then the ceiling and everything hit the floor. It was a puff of smoke that shot through the kitchen. It was unbelievable. That's a big damn limb.
But as the cleanup picked up, things began to heat up at MLG&W. Some of the more than 200,000 customers without power began to question why MLG&W was not using more outside help.
That we're only going to take people that are well-trained, experienced line crews, but we do have to spend a little time just getting them acclimated to our system.
MLG&W officials tried to soothe tensions, saying 100,000 people had their power back and the number of workers in the field had doubled. Police also saw an increase in crime. The number of burglaries jumped from the usual 5 to 10 a day to 101 in just 2 days.
More people at home, of course, you know, watching their property and everything and attending to their problems without the electricity.
With no power, homes and businesses became hard to protect. But officials promised help. The total estimated cost of the storm rose to almost $40 million. The staggering figure got the attention of Tennessee Governor Phil Bredesen, who toured the storm-damaged areas Thursday, promising to rush a letter requesting federal assistance straight to the president's desk.
By Friday, the novelty of life without power was wearing thin.
They get tired of just sitting there looking at the walls. They get tired of reading books. So you got to find something for them to do. So bring them outside, spray them down with some cold water, make them tired, let them get sleep, put them to bed.
No rest for the weary. MLG&W crews, assisted by hundreds of workers from outside companies, continued the repair and restoration. MLG&W Chief Herman Morris faced the Memphis City Council and extended the date when power would be fully restored.
I will tell you that it's still going to be more than a week.
He compared Summer Storm 2003 to the ice storm in 1994.
Unlike 1994, when ice brought branches down and branches brought lines, tore lines literally off poles, big trees have fallen as a result of the straight line winds this year.
But 175,000 homeowners sweltering in the Delta heat weren't interested in hearing about ice unless it was ice for a cooler.
Emergency management.
Thousands called a hotline set up by Shelby County's Emergency Management Agency.
Get an accurate idea of the impact this is having on the community.
Shelby County commissioners took to the streets to shake hands and see the damage firsthand.
It's terrible. I've never seen anything like it.
A sentiment shared by many as they closed out one of the longest weeks in recent memory.
The weekend dawned with 139,000 people still in the dark.
We said at the beginning that we weren't going to be able to do it all in one day, and we're not able to do everybody all at one time.
Hours were spent cleaning up.
I was going to spend the day at the pool, but I can't get to the pool because I can't get out of my yard. So this is not the day we had anticipated.
Mid-South churches changed their plans, meeting outside. While another group of Mid-Southerners spent Sunday meeting inside. Memphis City Council members worked.
Do you have underground wire?
To answer questions and help people in need. Massive cleanup seemed to turn up more mess and more tragedy. 2 more storm deaths. A man hurt the first day of the storm died. He had been helping others trim trees off their homes. And an elderly man died from carbon monoxide poisoning 1 day after getting a generator. But the news was not all bad from the storm. Neighbor helped neighbor.
We got lights.
And power did come back on. Slowly but surely.
It's almost everything, it seems like it's getting back to normal, gradually, but it is.
A week after the storm hit, President Bush signed off on the federal disaster declarations for Shelby and Fayette counties, freeing up thousands of dollars for storm victims badly in need.
The money would help, but it would take more, much more, to get down the road to recovery. The patience to live without power.
I'm burning up.
And the power of patience. Then we'll sit down with MLG&W President Herman Morris.
Plus, how a trip across the river landed the mayor of Memphis in hot water as our special look back at the destruction at dawn continues.
The storm damaged more than 1,000 power poles like that one there, blew 800 transformers, and knocked down thousands of miles of wire. More than 300,000 people found themselves in the dark, and for some, it would mean weeks without power.
But the people of the Mid-South rallied around each other and made it through the many dark days after the destruction at dawn.
At first, it was an inconvenience.
Well, no TV, no radio, candle lights at night.
But people made the best of it.
I could just talk to each other, conversate, good family time.
And then reality set in.
Time's burning up. It's extremely hot in here.
As families looked for ways to make it with no lights and no air conditioning.
The mini refrigerator stays plugged into the generator.
Some turned to shelters.
This is my neighborhood for right now.
While others toughed it out at home.
We get in here to keep out of the heat at night and mosquitoes.
Homeowners trying to hold on to hope in a life without light. Ursula Madden reporting.
And picking up our story on Disaster Street, I'm Stephanie Rodriguez. After 9 days without power, and then...
Power! Yay!
With the flip of a switch.
I was just thinking about that a minute ago. This is better than being a kid in Christmas.
All through the neighborhood, devastated by the storm.
We finally got electricity, thanks to these good gentlemen.
Something to smile about.
I don't care if they are Yankees.
And someone to thank.
It feels good. I turned my air on and I said, thank you, Jesus, thank you.
Getting the lights back on to the thousands of people without power would ultimately take 16 days.
The destruction at dawn would become the largest power outage in MLG&W history and would be a fight in more ways than one. Daryl Phillips picks up that part of the story from downtown. Daryl?
Joe, from some of the worst damage here downtown to comparable devastation farther east, repair crews were stretched thin. But the crews repairing power poles, it turns out, had the biggest job, and as we later learned, faced the tallest hurdles. MLG&W President Herman Morris gave it his all.
I will tell you that it's still going to be more than a week.
And that was only 3 days after the storm hit. Was he ever right? The storm that tore out much of Memphis left its utility workers weather-beaten too.
I need 2 cut washers!
The crisis was without relief for the hundreds of linemen and women assigned to bring back to life the thousands of electric poles snapped and dropped by the storm.
To tell you the truth, they're too tired to talk a lot. There haven't been a lot of conversation. We're working 14-hour shifts with 8-hour rest periods.
And they weren't expecting the storm of criticism either. The utilities leaders spent days defending charges they rejected outside help.
At no point did we decline any help from anyone.
It later became clear MLG&W did turn down some crews from public utilities in Chattanooga and Clarksville and from private power company Entergy. But MLG&W leaders said it was only because it would have been unsafe to send more outside crews to work on wires without local guidance, and there just weren't enough Memphis workers to board the outside trucks.
These folks are dealing with 12,000 votes and 23,000 votes, and they're working in neighborhoods like this where you don't know if there's another crew working on the street behind you. And you've got to have people that are familiar with your terminology when you're on the radio.
Within days, though, MLG&W did accept the help of nearly 1,000 extra workers. Still, they couldn't shake the bad vibe, and workers felt it on the front line.
We'll have people drive by us and they'll cuss us out because, I mean, they're out of power and they've been without power for 8 days now.
With more than 2/3 of its customer base powerless, so many Mid-Southerners also complained that the utility poles are a vulnerability and that the entire grid should be overhauled.
It's an expensive effort to put all of the services underground. We would like to do it. It would help in situations like this. If the community of Memphis and Shelby County would like to see movement in that direction, there's going to be cost involved.
In fact, MLGW estimates it would cost $3.5 billion for that job. For now, the cost of destruction will be paid in lessons learned. Well, MLG&W officials have said repeatedly that this storm was the biggest challenge its staff has ever faced in Memphis history, and they hasten to add that they were able to restore power one day sooner than they restored power after the ice storms of 1994. In downtown Memphis, I'm Daryl Phillips reporting.
Keeping cool after the dawn of destruction.
I was bored, hot, and decided to make me a swimming pool.
Coping with the crisis in the Mid-South.
Plus, a look at the massive damage from the storm that knew no boundaries.
And it wasn't a tornado, so what was it? We'll ask the experts to explain what hit us. You could literally watch the summer storm move across the Mid-South. Take a look at this video shot from our Midtown Hi-5 camera. Watch the transformers as they explode. You can see it there. Then the wind and the rain, powerful from every angle. Tonight, we take a look at that fierce summer storm and tell you exactly what hit us. Meteorologist Tim Van Horn takes a look at the science of the storm.
Midtown High-5.
The destruction at dawn started as a cold front with rain and some very cool air. As it approached the Mississippi River, it took on a violent identity. The Pinpoint 5 forecast called for thunderstorms on Tuesday. Ron Childers tracked the line of storms as they crossed the river.
It doesn't look that impressive, but believe you me, it is very heavy this morning.
The storm exploded when it reached Memphis. The Neighborhood Network and NexRad data estimated winds gusting near 100 miles per hour. Had this been a tropical storm, those wind speeds, when sustained, would have qualified as a Category 2 hurricane.
The damage is much different in a tornado. Had this been a tornado, the damage path would have been much more narrow, and it would have been much more devastating.
But it wasn't a hurricane, and it wasn't a tornado.
It's called a derecho. A derecho is a Spanish word meaning straight or straight ahead. Straight line winds, not swirling winds like a tornado.
Here's a look at how a derecho works. Derechos are the result of squall-line thunderstorms that create one downburst after another as they move along. The red arrows represent the warm, moist air forced up along the cooler air mass. See the blue arrows tumbling downward? Those are the resulting downbursts, the pockets of rapidly cooled air that are blasted down from the thunderstorm. Derechos are more common in the central to northern plains and the Ohio Valley.
But in my experience, I would say that tornadoes in the Mid-South would be much more common than a derecho of this devastation.
Hopefully, very infrequently. Meteorologist Tim Van Horn reporting.
The storm touched everyone in the Mid-South, from those who lost their homes to those of us who learned to get through an intersection without a working traffic light.
And to make it through, the people of the Mid-South bonded together, helped each other out, and most importantly, did not forget to laugh. George Brown joins us with a look at the lighter side of the storm. George?
Well, for some people, their sense of humor was all they had left, so they made the best of a bad situation. And they showed that you can have a chuckle even when the chips, or in this case trees, are down. When the storm brought power lines and trees down, Mid-Southerners did their best to bring their spirits up.
Pair of jack stands, a tarp, and a water hose, all you need to stay cool.
Kyle Kaiser found a way to beat the heat as he and his neighbors took the term carpool in a whole new direction.
I decided to get cool one way or another, and this popped into my head.
While Kaiser was cooling off, Midtowners were working up a sweat, cycling in the sun.
It's so hot inside that the coolest place is definitely outside, and we get a real nice breeze going from the east.
A few streets away, people living on Linden could barely get a bike down their street. Too many trees in the way.
Disaster. Disaster.
But disaster didn't stop the one-liners as these storm victims went on display on Disaster Street.
We felt like the pandas at the zoo, and that, you know, everybody gets to come down the street for free and take pictures for free. And we're like,
stop at the end of the street, make a donation.
Cleaning up trees and leaves can do a number on your nails. No power, no lights, no worry. Amy Greer was on duty in the dark.
I'm hot, I'm sweaty. I've been here since 10 o'clock this morning, but you know, a lady's beauty goes on.
And you know, if you get your nails done, you gotta get your hair done up. At the salon on Madison Avenue, makeovers were taking place on Madison.
Definitely our business has dropped off, I'd say 50%. For one thing, we have no hot water. So nobody wants to get their hair washed in cold water, do you?
No.
While hair and nails in need got a good going over, drivers in need had to get over long lines, sometimes stretching around the block.
I pulled up at 9:15 and it's now about 10:30, 10:35. I've actually run out of gas since I've been here. I have like I had a fourth of tank. Now I'm actually on empty, but I'm sure some good Samaritan is going to push me on up to the pump. But yeah, I'm actually out of gas now.
Mid-Southerners making the most of a bad situation. And the laughs just keep on coming. Look at this t-shirt we found at the cupboard. It's got an angry cloud on the top and it says, "I survived Summer Storm 2003, Memphis, Tennessee. And in case the lights ever go out again," that's right, it glows in the dark so you'll be able to find it. It might be the only piece of clothing you can find if there is a storm again. So while some people, they try to keep their sense of humor up, others, they're laughing all the way to the bank. On Linden, I'm George Brown reporting.
Counting the cost for Mid-South businesses.
It's just shocking that in 15 minutes that you could pretty much knock a business pretty much out of business or to its knees.
After the storm, and
you'd act as if I was in Florida on the beach somewhere.
The mayor responds to criticism after the destruction at dawn.
The pictures are just as shocking now as they were that Tuesday morning. Homes split wide open by trees. The damage and destruction clear. No matter where you went, you saw people affected by the destruction at dawn. It would take weeks to truly understand the storm's impact on the Mid-South. This storm did not discriminate, leaving a path of destruction in almost every community around our region. Tonight, a closer look back at the areas hit. We begin with Kim Clark in Midtown and the storm's impact on the city of Memphis. Kim?
Well, Joe, when I moved here 15 years ago, one of the things I loved most about Memphis was the big, old, beautiful trees, just like this one. But it's these big, old, beautiful trees that caused a lot of the problems here in the city of Memphis. Here now, a look at the damage inside the Bluff City. People living along the Mississippi River's edge felt the storm first. Downtown was among the hardest hit areas. Roofs ripped from buildings. Bricks crumbled on the ground. Trees along the river walked, ripped up by their roots and tossed aside like toys. Portions of the Gibson Guitar Factory building were blown into the street and onto cars. And Beale Street was closed down for days while crews worked to stabilize the wind-tilted cranes used to build the FedEx Forum. Midtown was next in the storm's path. Linden Avenue, temporarily but appropriately renamed Disaster Street by the people who live there. The wind blew away almost an entire floor of broomcorn fabrics, while Ike's on Union lost every window on the front of the building. Not even 100-year-old churches were safe.
Are we going to look like Midtown again? You know, are we? Honestly.
The Memphis Zoo had its share of damage as well.
No animals were injured, and it was a miracle because a lot of the hoofed animals were standing out when the trees started to fall.
This is my little house for right now.
In Fraser, the Ed Rice Community Center was turned into a shelter for those whose homes were made unlivable by the storm and the resulting power outage.
It was too hot. The mosquitoes was eating us up. We had no food.
Memphis International Airport also faced difficulties from the storm. With limited power, flights were canceled or rerouted. Flights finally resumed a day later. The storm continued its destruction into East Memphis. Dozens of homes in the Chickasaw Gardens subdivision were destroyed or severely damaged by falling trees and limbs. But no matter where you lived when the summer storm of 2003 roared through, this was the kind of storm few of us have ever seen, and and most of us hope to never see again. Now, right now, you see a ladder going up to this roof here. These are people actually out here working to get this damage repaired on this home at this time. Now, late today, EMA Director Clint Buchanan told us that more than 3,000 structures were damaged throughout Shelby County, and he expects that number to go even higher, which leads to the fact that Memphis was not the only area devastated by this storm. Donna Davis picks up our coverage now in the studio. Donna?
All right, thank you, Kim. And you know what was so amazing about this storm was the wide path of damage. Virtually every neighborhood, every community was touched. Here now, a look at how Mother Nature's wrath extended beyond the city of Memphis. Daylight brought a clearer picture of the chaos along Germantown Parkway. Dozens of utility poles and power lines snapped and tossed along the side of the road. On into the city of Germantown, uprooted trees remain littered along the curbs. There was also roof damage to the city's crown jewel, the Germantown Performing Arts Center.
The parking lot lost several trees around here, but we lost just a little bit of flashing from the roof on GPAC up on the top. And
in all, the storm damaged 257 Germantown homes and 9 businesses and knocked out power to 80% of the city. Further east in Bartlett, the storm delivered a crushing blow. Insurance adjusters totaled this house on Ivanhoe Road. The 80-year-old man who lived here escaped bodily injury, but there was plenty of emotional damage.
He was sitting out back and he just started kind of having like a seizure, just too much stress.
In all, the city of Bartlett had nearly 1,000 homes and businesses damaged by the storm. Moving on to Lakeland.
Doesn't look much like it did before, but it's home.
Winds wrecked the roof of this home. It's much the same scene all over town. While parts of Lakeland lost power during the storm, about 500 homes were damaged. And much of Collierville was left in the dark as well, and without phone service. The Powell Road Community Center served as a temporary home for some residents of the 469 Collierville homes damaged by Summer Storm 2003. And all across the Mid-South, businesses felt the brunt of the storm, damaged in some cases, without power in others. Bill Lund joins us now from downtown with more on that. Bill.
That's right, Donna. In fact, Beale Street was actually evacuated that morning. The Gibson Guitar Factory behind me, severely damaged. You can see this is some of the chunks that we found lying around the street here. It's still closed down and should be for up to a month. MLG&W, just a block from where I'm standing, estimates its cost will be $30 million. The phone company Bell South says it will spend $3 million to recover from the summer storm. But for small businesses, the problem could be even worse. They lost buildings, they lost time, they lost productivity, and by the time their damages are totaled, it could reach $40 million.
Memphis-based businesses as large as FedEx and Northwest Airlines felt the effects of the summer storm, but the real impact was to small businesses. Many lost power for more than a week. Hardest hit this corridor of business in the Cooper Young area. Hadaway Taxidermy had 7 freezers full of animals to be stuffed. Suddenly they were melting, but they found 3 generators and kept their critters in a deep freeze. Lost, though, days of work and productivity. Down the street at Graham's Lighting, hundreds of fixtures hung from the ceiling, but who would buy a light without seeing it turned on? The power lost here for 8 days. Downtown at the Memphis Area Chamber, they put together a recovery plan. The way the chamber sees it, there were 2 phases of damage. That which occurred in the first few minutes.
There's this tremendous physical impact with windows broken out, and walls crashed in, and all this damage that is obvious and immediate. And you can calculate that.
But what is more difficult to calculate are the lost opportunities. Orders never placed, sales calls never made, packages never shipped. Right now, hard to put a dollar figure on it, but it could grow as high as $40 million.
There's no question that it's a major blow.
And the damage was not contained to Shelby County. This is Fayette County. Moscow businessman Charles Gherkin hit with a triple whammy when the fierce winds blew through. His convenience store, laundromat, and motel were all damaged.
Gonna have to go to the bank, borrow the money, put it back to where it was.
And that's a common theme. Dozens of businesses are applying for federal loans and hoping their insurance covers more than lost buildings. To businesses, it was all about lost opportunities in the summer storm of 2003.
I'm Renee Malone. When the power is out, so are criminals. Just ask Marvin Brown. He was home when burglars tried to break in.
And they just took a small beer bottle and just, bashed my glass.
Brown, like many who lived for days without power, feared for his safety. The only weapon he had to fight back, this flashlight.
A situation like this, power outage, for 4 or 5 days, this is what we basically have to go through.
According to the MPD, from July 22nd until August 4th, there were 514 reported residential burglaries. That's compared to 431 at this time last year. What's worse, the number of business burglaries. During this period in 2002, there were 113. This year, that number nearly doubled to 218. The good news is many of the bad guys have been caught. When burglars peeled away a back door to Exotic Customs, a battery-powered alarm system was waiting.
With the power being off, thought maybe the burglar alarm didn't work, but the system still was up and running.
Police say the other safeguard, quick-thinking neighbors.
And they're reporting prowlers and suspicious activities.
And the crime tips to police are paying off. There have been 109 burglary arrests since the July 22nd storm. Police say as more businesses and residents get their power turned on, more prowlers are getting turned away. Still, folks like Marvin Brown will continue to keep an eye out, just in case. Renee Malone reporting.
And back downtown, you can see from Chopper 5, the FedEx Forum construction site. The project, which had been on time and on budget, also took a major hit from the storm. 3 construction cranes were damaged. It took workers more than a week to dismantle those cranes. Beale Street was, of course, evacuated because of fear that those cranes would collapse onto people on the street. That never happened. The cranes were dismantled within a week and everything went on safely, and construction on the FedEx Forum now continues. Reporting downtown, Bill Lund, now back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Bill. The destruction at dawn caused problems for everyone, but that summer storm stirred up a stormy controversy for Memphis Mayor Willie Harrington.
It all started with a short mention in the newspaper on Friday, July 25th.
Mayor Willie Harrington left Thursday afternoon for Little Rock for a fundraiser.
Talk Radio picked up the story, and
Action News may help you.
Some even called the newsroom to express their opinion. Okay. Others wrote letters to the editor of the Commercial Appeal.
Memphis Mayor Willie Harrington should be ashamed of himself. One of the primary functions of a mayor is to comfort your city in a crisis. The greatest example of this was New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani after the September 11th, 2001 attacks.
Mayor Harrington went on the attack at a news conference.
I'm the chief executive officer of the city. If I couldn't go across the river for 2.5 hours, let me just tell you this. I've been in this job for 12 years. 12 years. I've never taken a vacation. Never been away from this job 3 consecutive days, okay? Now you find another public servant in any city in America that can tell you that.
The mayor should stay in his or her city. Harrington saw fit instead to skip town and go to Little Rock for a campaign fundraiser of all things.
You'd act as if I was in Florida on the beach somewhere. Just went across Little Rock.
The mayor said the whole thing had been blown out of proportion by the media. Janice Broach reporting.
Up next, traffic after the storm and how we handled it. Then,
this is not just a typical pick the wire up and attach it back to the pole effort. It is actually a reconstruction.
MLGNW President Herman Morris joins us live to talk about those days right after the destruction at dawn.
In the days after the storm, frustration and anticipation gripped the Mid-South. While some waited for our turn at an intersection, others waited for gas, and we all waited for power. The storm changed the way we lived, and it put our patience to the test.
Tuesday morning, July 22nd, the worst of times for Memphis drivers, and that is if you could drive. Navigating Memphis on that now infamous morning, difficult in some places, impossible in others. Deborah Campbell was driving her daughter to school when the storm hit. The next thing she knew, her daughter was yelling for dear life.
Yes, she was screaming.
And with good reason, because Campbell and her daughter never saw the tree that squashed their car.
I'm like, we got to crawl out of this tree. We can make a way out. We can get out.
Their lives spared by just inches, Campbell could only hug her loved ones and give thanks. And while most drivers didn't experience that kind of drama, all were forced to deal with the storm's aftermath, whether it was weaving through streets that looked more like debris-covered minefields, or waiting in some of the longest gas lines this city has ever seen. Almost no one was unaffected. Wayne Gaskin is in charge of the city's traffic lights. His half-hour drive to work became a 2.5-hour odyssey the morning of the storm. Of the 800 traffic lights in the city, 600 were affected. 437 severely damaged or destroyed. It adds up to quite a repair bill.
Our initial estimates were from $350,000 to $450,000.
But repair costs and time wasted in traffic seem insignificant to Deborah Campbell. In her view, but for the grace of God, she'd be dead. So these days, in the wake of a storm that almost sent her to an early grave, she hugs her loved ones a little tighter and holds them a little longer. In Memphis, Mike Puccinelli reporting.
And I'm Joyce Peterson. From gridlock to grade school, this storm knew no boundaries. The damage estimate in the Memphis City school system tops $10 million. The day the lights went out, Beth Staten had just dropped daughters Kayla and Taylor off at summer school.
Whatever stoplight I was at, I couldn't see the signs. The wires were already broken, and there were live wires in the streets.
Inside Idlewild Elementary in Midtown, Kayla and Taylor were directly in the path of the storm.
Well, we were playing basketball, the lights went out, and then Miss Thomas said, "Come and sit by me." Then the roof came off.
Not only did part of Idlewild's roof blow away, the cafeteria flooded and 10 classrooms were totaled.
There's extensive damage there, and that's going to be a very big challenge to get that school ready.
4 city schools, including Idlewild, were so badly damaged they were forced to hold registration elsewhere. Cleanup crews have been working overtime to clear campuses all across the city, but the damage at Idlewild is so bad, hundreds of students will have to be relocated. First Baptist Church at Poplar and Parkway was kind enough to donate space.
And this community has just really responded and come to our aid.
First semester will be a challenge. Many educators, kids, and parents, like Jennifer Beatty, are still dealing with storm damage at home.
Everything's in disarray, you know, and laundry's all backed up, and you got other things to spend your money on right now than uniforms and school supplies, and, you know, you got deductibles and...
But classes start Monday, so ready or not, it's time for Memphis to go back to school.
The destruction at dawn left its mark, and it made us truly appreciate one thing we take for granted every single day: electricity. In the storm's wake, more than 300,000 MLG&W customers lost power. Work to restore power began immediately and went around the clock until all of the lights were back on. Joining us in our studio here live, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water President Herman Morris. He headed up all of the restoration efforts. And Mr. Morris, thank you for joining us here.
Well, thank you for having us.
Well, when you look back on this event, what memories will stand out for you the most?
I think the memory that will stand out most vividly for me is the way our community stepped forward and met this challenge. Our community stepped forward and became a community of good neighbors, neighbors helping each other. Our company stepped forward. Our employees stepped up and met the challenge and would not quit until we got all of our customers back on.
Well, MLG&W workers gave a Herculean effort to restore power, and almost 1,000 extra workers were brought into the city to help. Looking back and reviewing everything that happened, was there anything you could have done in this massive restoration to make it go any faster?
You know, we realized early on, once we got out and made our assessments of the damage and destruction that had been wrought on our community, we realized early on that this was something the likes of which we'd never seen before. I don't know that there's anything that could have been done to safely and effectively have brought our customers and our community back to power than what was done. We brought in 1,000 men and women from outside our community, integrated them in with our crews, and we had about 2,000 working 14 hours a day, 10 hours of rest, and 14 hours a day for 14 days. That was an incredible feat, and we did it without having anyone seriously injured or a fatality in the course of getting the work done.
That was a remarkable feat, that no one working on the utility poles was hurt whatsoever.
Oh, it was remarkable. The only thing that I found that was more remarkable was the dedication and commitment of our employees. Let me just take just a moment and tell you about one young man. I was out visiting crews and trying to encourage and keep spirits and morale up, and I ran across a young man. He was working on a 3-person crew, and he was working 14-hour days while his home and all of his worldly possessions had been destroyed the day before in a fire. He actually had nowhere to go at the end of the day to rest and recover and recoup to come back to work the next day. But he was there every day for the entire 14-day run, getting our customers back on. It's that kind of commitment that inspired even me.
Well, MLG&W workers are also customers of the utility as well, and they suffered at home as well as when they had to go out and work those long hours. Now, obviously, your leadership team will sit down with your board and carefully review all of these events to determine how things happened and how things might be improved the next time a natural disaster strikes. Now, we hope and pray it's not on this scale, but what are some things you could tell us that MLG&W has learned through this very difficult couple of weeks?
Well, one of the things we've learned is the value and the benefit of exactly what you've suggested, going back and reviewing and analyzing how we attack this issue, how we attack the problem, learning the things we did well, where we can find areas for improvement. We did that after the ice storm of '94, and many of the lessons that we learned from '94 were applied in this case. The thing that we did that was most important was we came up with an assessment and a plan, and we rolled the plan out, and we stuck to the plan, and the plan is what really drove us to the success that we enjoyed in this effort.
Well, I know people across the community are applauding the effort, but there is the bill to pay at the end of the day, isn't there? That this is going to be a significant cost. We reported on Action News 5 at the MLG&W board meeting that it could run as high as $30 million. Do you think a rate hike, specifically because of the storm, is something that's likely as a result of
Well, I think those are issues that we'll examine and reflect on as we begin the process of looking at, first of all, what costs we have incurred. It could be well in excess of $30 million. We're hopeful that we'll see some benefit of the FEMA money coming back into the community, and it will offset some of that. But we'll go through the process as we usually do every year of examining our costs, examining and putting together our budget and determining what should be done in terms of any kind of adjustment of that nature. And we're not at that point at this time.
Herman Morris, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having us, and you provided a tremendous service to our customers and the community.
And a hats off as well to the Bell South workers and Time Warner workers and all the tree cutters who worked right alongside MLG&W workers. Well, tonight the lights are on over Memphis, as you can see from Chopper 5. Up next, we'll tell you what we learned after the destruction at dawn.
It was a storm like no other experienced in the Mid-South in recent years. It hit a strong community and it hit us hard. But now the community is fighting back and preparing for the next perfect storm. All of us were tested by the destruction at dawn.
There's a lot to learn from a community crisis such as this one. So what did we learn?
The blast of gale force winds lasted only moments. Lessons in those winds may prove golden in a future natural disaster.
We're going to have an assessment of our recovery, our disaster recovery plan, because as you well know, we are on the pneumatic fault line. Memphis is in a precarious position in terms of earthquakes, and this may be a wake-up call for us to go back and look at how well we are prepared.
Whether the ground shakes or the wind blows, better coordinated communications may help. The Emergency Management Agency is supposed to take charge in such a crisis, while the EMA did centralize communications at first.
Memphis City Council's Lisa, may I help you?
Hotlines sprung up inside City Council, elsewhere in city and county government, in addition to the EMA, leading to some confusion. Then, different agencies called news conferences for the same times in different locations, limiting the news media's ability to communicate the very message leaders wanted to broadcast to you. Getting the message on the air proved a challenge too. When power blacked out, most of you lost TV. To make matters worse, the powerful winds knocked several Memphis radio stations off the air. Each of us individually learned how well or woefully prepared we were for such a crisis. More of us will keep flashlights, candles, and emergency supplies handy, and we've learned the importance of documenting damage for insurance purposes. Most of us adapted pretty well. We did largely treat non-functioning red lights as four-way stops. Neighbors unselfishly shared food, chainsaws, and extension cords. People checked on one another, cleared trees, and tried to help make life bearable. We adapted.
Only the good Lord knows, or Mother Nature knows, when there's going to be a disaster of this nature. And what we do as mankind, given the best technology, given the best wisdom and planning we have, we respond. And I think we've responded extremely well.
A constant, careful review of the events of late July 2003 may help the Mid-South recover faster the next time disaster strikes.
We are a community made up of good people, strong people, willing to do what it takes to overcome any storm.
And while the cleanup may take months or even years, we will put the Mid-South back together and be ready for the next big storm.
Thank you for taking time to take a look back at the destruction at dawn. On behalf of all of us right here at Action News 5, good night.
Almost as soon as the winds blew, the summer storm of 2003 claimed its first victims.
And the people that stay over there, they came to my house from the back door, and they said to use the phone because the tree had fell on their house. And I had helped them get the rest of the people out. And the man, you just stuck up on the tree.
That falling tree killed 74-year-old John Price while he slept in his bed on Holman. Price was an Army veteran, husband, father of 11, and grandfather of more than 50. While family and friends grieved outside his home, neighbors at the Court Apartments tried to rescue a baby trapped inside a burning unit. Her family was outside watching the storm when they realized their apartment was on fire. They weren't able to rescue the 2-month-old girl. Although the storms were over Tuesday, 5 more Memphians would lose their lives to the storm, all trying to deal with power outages. Charlotte and Tommy Reeves died when a burning candle caught fire to their home on Netherwood. The middle-aged parents and grandparents were members of the New Life Missionary Baptist Church. In East Memphis, a generator poisoned 9 people inside a home on McElroy. The father came home to find his family fighting for life.
We heard the man yelling and screaming, coming out of his garage.
A 2-year-old died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Another generator killed a former MLGW worker at his home on Boeingshire. Van Nelson died from carbon monoxide poisoning. His friends remember him as a book study conductor at their church. One man died while he was trying to help others recover from the storm. Joe Nelson was cutting down one tree limb when another tree limb fell and hit him on the head. He was the co-owner of a lawn service, a father, and a husband. In all, the summer storm killed 7 people, our city's most valuable and irreplaceable resource. Brooke Sanders, Action News 5.